I say we jump right on in, and then let's just start with like a personal story and a background from you to like where you were and then where you are currently, and what brought you to this whole subject.
Yeah. So I grew up in Minnesota in St. Paul, and I had a pretty, I don't know, like standard mainstream upbringing. Didn't my parents were not hippies. I did not know anything about plant medicine. Like explored with some drugs here and there in high school and college, and drank a lot. That's what you do in the Midwest. But I didn't have any exposure to any sort of spiritual practices or plant medicine stuff. And I moved out to California, and I ended up working at Google. I got like my dream job, and it was, like I was like, I made it, I'm done. Like everything is complete. I've accomplished like the coolest thing ever. And like fast forward 5 years, I was super burnt out, super jaded, was not happy living that life. And I found I just like, I don't even know how, but I dove into a yoga teacher training. Like I was like, I kind of had done some yoga, and my whole life was kind of falling apart. Like I was breaking up with my boyfriend from college, and everything was just kind of like crumbling, and I was searching for something. I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I really wanted to stop drinking. I would party all the time, and I like didn't like it, but I didn't know how to get out of that cycle. So I took this yoga teacher training, and that was really like, that opened the door for me to spirituality, just like the concept of really like feeling spirit and experiencing spirit in a way that I never did when I went to church as a kid. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was the first kind of opening. And then I was in Mexico, and through this kind of synchronistic experience, I was invited to a cacao ceremony, and I had no idea what that was. I was like, chocolate? Like, okay, what, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I went, and it was the first time I'd ever sat in a group ceremony where people were in a circle, and there was singing, and there's instruments and drumming and all sorts of, crystals and bells and all sorts of stuff. And I had no idea what any of it was, but I also felt so at home, like so deeply, just like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. I feel like this homecoming. I feel comfortable. I feel like this big exhale, like, oh my God, okay, this is kind of, I don't know what this is, but this is what I've been searching for. Um, so that was really where my life, I was like on this path, and then it went total like 180. And then over the next like 8 months, I quit my job, I sold all my things. I bought a ticket to Peru and went and learned from the master plants, and basically took like a year of falling apart and, being a hot mess and figuring out who I was. And then, I mean, this story could go on, but I'll close it up with, I came home from that. I came back to California, and I was having a hard time. Like I was in Peru, and then I was in Costa Rica, and I was just living kind of outside of the matrix. I was not plugged into society. And that's such a huge privilege to have, to even like have that experience as someone that like lives in the matrix. But, um,
Hmm.
I'm so glad I gave myself that gift, because there's so many people that do have resources to do that kind of stuff, and they don't take that leap, right?
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, but I came home, and I was having a really hard time integrating back into society. Like it was just, I did not like it. um,
Yeah.
and that was when I heard about microdosing, and that's what I focus on now. Is I'm a microdosing advocate, and I educate people on creating their own microdosing protocols. And that was like about 4 years ago when I came back home, 4 or
Okay.
5 years. Yeah.
Fairly recent.
Yeah, I
So,
guess.
so has all of this has all this been a recent thing, or has all this kind of accumulated over the years, like slowly but surely led you to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I started microdosing, I would say 4 or 5 years ago. Um, and I've, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been, working with various plants, and I've really, over the past 3 years, I would say I've really focused on microdosing specifically. Hello.
Hello, how are you? I'm sorry, I was trying to get the interview series page up, but they're asking me all these security questions.
Oh, shoot.
So,
No,
so
no
we're
worries.
on my account for now.
Okay.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. This is for everyone who's watching. This is Long Journey. He's our co-host, and our guest host Emerald is not with us once again tonight, but
Oh,
she will be coming soon on the next episode.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
to speed you up though, LJ, we're just going over her backstory as of right now, which is actually very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing some more of how you started with this. Um, but don't let his incoming distract you. Just keep going, and
Yes,
I'm looking forward
please.
to hearing some more.
okay. Yeah. So, I came back to society, and I was having a hard time, and I heard about microdosing, and I just wanted to try it because I knew that I had just, over the past year, had been working with master plants. So like ayahuasca, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, or San Pedro. And I'd done some really deep, powerful psychedelic journeys, right? And I knew when I came back to California, when I came back home, I knew I didn't need that anymore. Like in that moment, I didn't need to go super deep, super far out. I actually needed to ground down and get into my body and figure out like, okay, how am I going to make money? What am I doing for my life? Um, and so that was when I heard about microdosing, and I was like, ooh, this is cool because I know that plants are so powerful, and I love working with the plants. But I also don't want to go so far. I don't need a big, huge medicine journey right now. So I started to just take little doses of psilocybin, of magic mushrooms. And it really helped me bridge back. So I didn't have to take a bunch of time to go on a big medicine journey and integrate all that. It was like I could start to integrate in my daily life and get back into society a bit. So that's what that was 4 years ago. And then I just started sharing about it, and I couldn't stop talking about it because it was so helpful for me. And I never planned to make it a thing. I never planned to have any sort of business around it. But it's just like, it's been helping so many people, like more and more people that come to me, like they're reporting these amazing healing experiences and transformations. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be the vessel here.
For people who don't know, or at least aren't familiar too much with it, what necessarily is it? Is plant medicine to you,
Yeah.
and what it's used for?
Oh, such a good question. So plant medicine, I mean, it's on the broadest level, it's working with plants as medicine. So that could be herbalism, that could be flower essences. I mean, it can any sort of plant uh, plants as medicine approach that people have. I think in kind of like today, when you see people talk about plant medicine, they're usually referring specifically to working with um, master plants or plant teachers that tend to have, they don't always, but there tends to be a very powerful effect, either, psychologically with psychedelics or with cacao. Like cacao is not a psychedelic medicine, but it has a very strong like effect on the heart. Like it really opens up your heart energetically and makes you more open to connecting with people. Um, so I think, a lot of times when people are talking about plant medicine these days, they're saying like, and how I was using it, and when I was just speaking, it's referring to master plants such as ayahuasca or San Pedro cactus or fungi, even though like psilocybin is not a plant, it's a fungi, that's a different thing, but it's kind of in the same category as far as like healing with plants. So yeah, I think there's like a healing with plants is kind of the main category, and that could go a lot of different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. LJ, you have anything on
Um,
that subject?
I was just gonna say, I want to ask you, what is your favorite psilocybin, if I may ask?
Oh, like strain?
Yeah, it's your favorite strain.
You know, I swear like 10 people have asked me this question in the last like 4 days. It's really funny. Um, I would say Golden Teachers is my favorite. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it just like for me, it brings a really like light energy that I find really helpful and a very wise teacher energy.
My question to you is the positive, not just the positive um, effects of it, but how this kind of connects to us as human beings and spiritually, because it seems to have, in my opinion, a stronger connection to really the spirit than it does even to the body.
Mm. Oh, I like that. So
Yeah.
you're like, how does it help us connect to spirit? Is that kind of the
Yes.
question? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I view fungi as very, very old divine teachers. Like they're a divine intelligence. They've been on planet Earth for, I mean, we found evidence, I guess, I don't even know how you do this, of them being 810 million years old. Like they've been on Earth for that long, and it could be longer. So
Yeah.
I really view them as these teachers. Like they have these codes for us, right? And they're they fit perfectly into our serotonin receptors. So they do have all the benefits of in the physiological system. But then they also um the way I like one of the main ways I connect to their medicine right now on planet Earth is through their mycelial web, like their ability to connect. They bring this connection medicine where it's like you're connecting with yourself, you're connecting with source, you're connecting with all the beings around you. Like it gets me out of a kind of like hierarchical or even like comparison. I've noticed like it can be so easy to see someone and you're like, oh, they're a competitor, or like have that weird programmed thought. But as I've worked with mushrooms, for as long as I have now, it's like I that thought doesn't even cross my mind. It's like, this is a beautiful human bringing their unique magic, and we need everyone's medicine right now. And so I feel like that that's a frequency that they carry, is like this, like, hey, we're all in this together, and we can share resources and we can support each other. And I mean, ultimately that's like spiritual oneness, right? I mean, that's like when we get to the big, it's like we're all one.
Right.
So that's how I connect with them in that way right now, at least.
Why these, if we want to call them substances, are so illegal when they don't have the effect that pharmaceutical companies and these drugs have on our systems and our bodies and our minds. Because from everything, at least from my research on this topic, has been that this has been very eye-opening, cures depression, and all these positive effects that it has. So, from your opinion, why do you think these are so looked down upon, as plant medicine? Do you think it's because technically they can't profit from it? Is it because it is something that benefits humans and humanity? Like, what's your take on it?
I mean, probably all of the above. I definitely think the consciousness expansion is something that they don't know how to handle. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you believe that there's one elite whatever, or like the cabal, or like, I don't like that. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on, right? Like, I really don't know what's going on. But I do think that if I was a government trying to, keep people in line, I probably wouldn't want them all. sitting in ceremony all the time, because it does help. It brings us to our authentic selves, and it through plant medicine, I think many people heal feelings of insecurity or not enoughness or fear or anxiety or depression. And so when we are operating from like an empowered sovereign place, we're not very easy to govern, right? So I think honestly, I think a lot of it is just kind of like the system that we've all created and something that we're working through collectively on Earth right now. Like, it's a big mission. I think that's why we came here right now, is to figure this out. I don't think there's a government meeting that's like, we can't let psychedelics go legal because then the people, like, I don't think it's that direct.
Yeah, specific.
Yeah, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
now
we're
it's
past
just
that.
so convoluted. We're just so far gone, right? Like, we're just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think, and now there's this kind of psychedelic renaissance happening where biotech companies are isolating their own or making their own like psilocybin-like compounds, and then they're patenting that, and then they're going to be able to make money off that. And so it's an interesting time, and I think that's, in a lot of ways, it's exciting because psychedelics are becoming more talked about and more studied. But yeah, I think, also like the pharmaceutical companies, I mean, there hasn't been any major development in depression, like healing of depression, for the last, 30 years. Like, it's just been these SSRIs. And so imagine when you see a study that's like, I took psilocybin once and I'm healed. Like, that's not good for the pharmaceutical business.
Right.
And so I know they're, of course, going to try and get their hands into the psychedelic pie. But yeah, I think money is kind of like the main thing, one of the main drivers for keeping it under wraps.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's illegal to grow, illegal to have, all these illegalities, but when you actually do your research on the subject, it's you're going, wait, this is helping people, this is curing people from things and making
Right.
people feel better. And on that topic, if you mind going over some of the effects of psilocybin, maybe how they've affected you or people that you know, or just doing your own research so that people know what is actually inside this plant medicine that is helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that's really easy to just search, if you look up what the psilocin, it's the active ingredient of psilocybin, so I'm just going to call it psilocybin. If you look up the psilocybin, what the molecule looks like, you can look up like psilocybin and serotonin. The actual chemical compounds look so similar. Like, there's just like a couple different things about them, but I love that, because that to me is like a sign from nature that they're like, hey, this is meant to fit. I designed this to fit into your serotonin receptors. Like, how crazy is that? And that's said for a lot of different plants. They fit into our bodies. Like, we're meant to be coexisting and co-creating. So that's one of the most popular benefits that a lot of people find microdosing or find psilocybin is for helping with anxiety, helping with depression, because it does work in those serotonin pathways. It's essentially a natural antidepressant, but it doesn't have, compared to pharmaceuticals, it doesn't have the numbing that a lot of people experience. And so when you're microdosing or you have a psilocybin journey, it can, I'm not, guaranteeing anything. Everyone's experience is different, but it can, for many people, alleviate the depression or the anxiety, and you also still feel, you feel all the full spectrum of emotions. So that's a big one. Another one that people, it's super popular in like Silicon Valley, and people are like using it, which is that's a whole conversation, but they're using it for work, or creative flow. and or focus, you know. And that is the way, like what's happening in the brain is that there's something called the default mode network that it's a network of different areas in our brain that is essentially what's happening in our default mode. It's where we have our sense of identity. It's kind of what's running. If we're not being super intentional where we're focusing, if we're just driving the car or doing the dishes or like scrolling Instagram, whatever, it's just operating, and there's all these thoughts happening, and there's all the, you know, we're not paying attention. We're just like having all these, you know, maybe like having these judgments of ourselves or making up these stories or judging other people. There's all these, like all the thoughts that we have, you know, throughout the day. So that's the default mode network. So the flip side of that is the positive task network. And that is activated when we're doing something like yoga or meditation, or I would guess even something like dancing, like something where you're fully focusing your energy, focusing your attention. You get into the positive task network activating, and the default mode kind of fades into the background. And when you're in that positive task network place, that's when you lose a sense of time. That's when you get into flow. That's when you're like creating your art, right? And so that's happening when we are ingesting psilocybin. It actually kind of dissolves or softens the default mode network into the background, and then the positive task network gets activated. So it's as if we're, you know, after doing yoga where you just feel super dropped in and you're really present, it kind of brings you into that state on its own, which I think is really incredible. And I mean, one other thing, I could talk about benefits all day, but one thing I do want to get at, because I often not forget, but I often don't get to this one because people, like, it's more popular, it's more common to ask about the depression and the anxiety and the flow state. Like those are kind of the trendy reasons why people microdose or why they work with psilocybin. But psilocybin is like a deep earth medicine, and it is profoundly healing. Like a lot of people will journey with psilocybin in order to do healing work, in order to, whether it's like ancestral healing, because these things, you know, they grow under the earth, like they're deep in the soil, and they have a whole network underground of their mycelial, basically their roots, that are interconnecting to everything. So there, you know, there's a whole other part of psilocybin that's not talked about as much, but it's really common to do that, like deeper healing work, like I said, and then also for any sort of like death medicine. You know, people are using it for end of life support, or if someone is terminally ill, they'll take psilocybin, or just kind of like the death medicine and rebirth, because mushrooms are also, they digest everything. You know, they literally they're all over the earth. There's 6 times the amount of fungi than there are plants on the earth, I read. So like they're really important. They're clearly doing a lot and there's a lot of them. And so they're kind of the ones that they decompose, whether it's like a human body that's buried in the ground or an animal or plant matter, you know, and then they're the ones like putting out spores and creating new life. So there's deep medicine there too.
Wow. I want to add into that because you asked her about spirit, and she brought up a great point of decomposed body. So the mushrooms could definitely be drawing this information from our ancestors and other spiritual beings that have once walked this planet, that have went back into the ground, and now they're able to actually download all of that information from the soil and bring it back up to surface to connect us with everything from the beginning. So it's like the root.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's been around for it's longer than we have. That this has also been used in you know, spiritual practices and rituals and things of the sort. But to go back a little bit further, when you were talking about the cacao, I was eating chocolate earlier today, and real chocolate, and I was thinking to myself, like, a lot of people probably don't even know this comes from the earth. Like, this isn't something that's made in a lab, but we do see, chocolate factories and labs and things that are creating these candies. But you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just kind of the effects and how the cacao is an important part of, let's say, somebody's diet if they want to add it. What they could be missing out on that.
Yes, I love cacao. I shared in the beginning, LJ, that cacao was kind of my opening into the plant world. Like, I was invited to a cacao ceremony. I had no idea what any of that was. I was like, a chocolate ceremony? What are you talking about? And changed my, like, it literally changed my whole life. So,
Wow.
yeah. So let's see. Cacao, it originates, well, the oldest evidence they've found of cacao liquid inside a ceremonial vessel is from Ecuador over 5,000 years ago. And the cacao tree, so it grows in a tree. I have a cacao pod, but I guess it's not in here. It grows in a tree, and it comes in these little, like, kind of looks like a skinny football, like a pod. And
Oh,
within the
I think I know what
pod,
you're talking about.
yeah, and within the pod,
Yeah.
there's like 40 to 60 beans or seeds. They look like, you can think of like a coffee bean, but it's different. Um, and so it originates in South America, and it's made its way up through Central America, and then the Spaniards came and they saw the Mayans and the Aztecs making this very like luscious, very revered kind of sacred drink, and the Spanish brought it over to Europe, and then it spread. And so there's a very active and alive Mayan culture in Guatemala and Mexico and Belize today. And I always want to speak that, because I feel like sometimes when we talk about this history, it's like, oh yeah, the Mayans, like way back when. And it's like, no, they're like still, like, they're like so resilient. Like, their culture is so strong and so beautiful. And they have an active, they have an unbroken cacao lineage mostly. Like, a lot of it was lost when colonization and like mass genocide was happening to their people, but they still carried it through. And so it's traditionally viewed as a goddess, like a feminine goddess. And it was originally, like, one of the ways it was worked with was as a beverage made with water and bitter. Like, cacao is very bitter. If you don't have sugar in it, it's like, you will be surprised. You're like, this is what I thought. This is what
This
chocolate
is
is,
true.
right?
This is very true.
Yeah. But then once you get used to it, it's really good. And then, so it'd be like water and cacao beans that were processed in a certain way, like fermented and roasted, and then ground, and then some sort of spice, like achiote or like a cayenne pepper. So that's like the traditional recipe, basically. And so, yeah, like, now there's ceremonial cacao companies. You can go sit in a cacao ceremony. Essentially, it's a beautiful medicine to like start with. Like I said, it was my kind of like opening in, because it was the first time I ever like connected to a plant. Like, I communed with this plant. Like, I really felt this strong connection to the spirit. I was like having visions, not like crazy psychedelic visions, but I just kind of like opened up my perception in a way that I was able to connect with this realm that I hadn't connected with before. And it increases blood flow in the body. There's a lot, it's packed with nutrients. When you get good cacao, there's a few like just companies I can shout out that if people are like, where do I get this?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, Aura Cacao is one. Their cacao ceremony on Instagram. It's actually my friend's company, and I worked there for a couple years, so it's like, it's good stuff. And then there's also, it's a Mayan name. It's hard to, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right. I think if you search that, you'll get there, and that is cacao grown, or it's cacao processed by Mayan women in Guatemala, and traditionally women are the ones that would prepare the cacao, so that's a really special one to connect into. So yeah, it's packed with nutrients. Like you've probably heard of cacao as a superfood, but you want cacao to have the cacao. You want the whole cacao bean, which includes about 50% cacao butter. So oh yeah, Imbue is a good one. They're great. Um, so cacao powder has the butter removed, the cacao butter removed, and so the butter, like cacao butter, is a really good, nourishing, healthy fat for us. And so when you have cacao paste, or if you look at any of these companies I just mentioned, you'll notice it's like it comes in kind of a brick of paste or little discs of paste. And that means that it's like the whole bean that's kind of been processed a bit to become this paste that will then melt into like hot water or a nut milk or something.
I'm
Okay.
typing in the real cacao, the pronunciation. I just found it on Google, so you can
Oh,
pin
thank
it.
you. Amazing. Appreciate that. Yes.
Of course, of course.
I want to talk about the psychedelic trips
Okay.
because this obviously happens to people. Um, but this isn't due to microdosing. Microdosing and macrodosing are two different things. So if you can kind of explain the micro and the macro for people who may not know,
Yeah.
and even for the people who do know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I put it on a like a spectrum of dosage. So 1 gram of psilocybin mushrooms is usually where a psychedelic journey starts. It's usually like a lighter psychedelic journey, but that's kind of where you're starting. You're like, I'm tripping, like I can't drive a car right now. That kind of thing could happen at around 1 gram. A heroic dose, and this, I mean, this it's helpful for explanation, but like I don't know, this is just kind of a term that Terence McKenna came up with, and there are plenty of people taking more than this. There is a whole. Do you guys know Baba Kalindi? Have you heard of him? Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Rest in
So
peace. Rest in peace.
yes, I know, real for real. So yeah, like, but anyways, Terence McKenna's definition of a heroic dose is 5 grams, and that's a high dose for sure. And then a microdose is around 1/10 of 1 gram. So we have this whole spectrum, right? And like you can play within that spectrum. But yeah, it's basically zero point 0.1 grams. It's a very small amount. And the whole intention with a microdose is that you take it and you're supposed to be able to go about your day and do everything you need to do in your day. You can drive your car, you can pick up your kids, you can do your work, you can go to the office. Like you are not tripping. Um, and so it can take some tweaking to like find that perfect dose for you. But um, yeah, that's what a microdose is for. It's like accessible, it's integratable. You don't need a trip sitter. You're not gonna like go off the rails. Not you're not gonna go off the rails like I don't know. That's not like the best term to use. I don't want to scare anyone away from
Yeah.
doing a macro dose. Um, if you go off the rails, it'll be for the healing of
Yeah.
yourself, and you'll probably be grateful for that later. But yeah, was that a good breakdown?
Have you seen the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
Yeah, a while ago, but yes.
Okay. To me, it's similar to that because obviously in the movie, I mean, he's taking that pill and I guess it takes maybe 15 minutes or it could be a shorter time than that, than for his mind to start opening. But I use that analogy to describe how it kind of slowly but surely happens over time. The more you microdose, the more you're opening these neural pathways that are now extending and expanding your mind. And some people do it, like how you said, in a heroic dose and higher doses where it may hit you quick. And that could just be maybe for that, I don't know, 2 hours, an hour, however long it may take for some people. Um, but when you're microdosing, you're kind of getting this slowly but surely expansion. And to me, it reminded me of the movie Limitless. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a great explanation. LJ, do you have
Yeah,
anything?
I wanted to touch on what you were just talking about. Because I started microdosing maybe my after my fourth time taking over 2 grams of
Okay.
mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed was I thought I was going to be spiritually intact and ready to actually, you know, receive
Right.
and work with the mushrooms, but I still in that earliest stages of like like basically exploring the mushrooms. I just spiritually wasn't ready. And so
Mm.
for people that are trying to get into like microdosing and things like that, you should first experience the plant in its entirety. I mean the plant, well, the fungi in its entirety, and then you want to do it at least, I would say 5 to 6 times before you're saying, okay, I want to continuously microdose now. Because
Mm-hmm.
once you have a certain amount of experience with it, you'll start to understand how important it is to respect the fungi. Because I
Yeah.
feel like, you know, a lot of people, they can hear this conversation like, yeah, I'm just going to start microdosing. And it's not that simple,
Mm-hmm.
because these are spiritual entities in the mushroom. So you want to
Yeah.
respect them and let
Yeah.
them know that you are fully open. Like you have to be fully open to microdose as well, people. You
Yeah.
can't go in there with all these blockages. This is why I say you need to take actual mushrooms first, because
Mm.
that will allow you to spiritually flow and be open to the idea of, okay, I can do this, you know, day by day or every other
Right.
week.
Mm-hmm. It's really,
So
it's building a relationship, you know, that's really what I hear in what you were just saying. It's like, um, you know, I don't like tell everyone you have to do 5 journeys before you can microdose, but I do really drive home the point that like it's important that it's like making a new friend. You know, I don't just go up to you and be like, hey, can you give me something that I need? Like, I would be like, hi, I'm Sena. How are
mhm.
you? What's your, you know, like there's a process, and it's a relationship that builds over time. And the more time you invest, the more time you spend, the more time you like literally, I talk to the fungi. Like I will just like, I pray or make offerings or just give gratitude or just speak. It's like just like you would a friend. All of that will strengthen your practice. And there's also a whole other side of like, it's not like just popping a pill and walking out the door. Like you need to have an intention, you need to know where your medicine comes from, you need to have, there's like protocols and containers, like there's a structure, right, to like really yeah, really just honor and respect the mushroom and what the gifts that they're giving you. And I will say, I mean, there are people, a lot of people that are more sensitive, and they'll start microdosing. They've never done a larger journey, and their heart, they'll start opening up. Like they will start, you know, they'll be like, wow, I just cried today. Like I was not expecting that. And I'm like, yeah, because the mushrooms, they'll bring that, you know, I feel like they'll find their way in, right? Like they're gonna like
Yeah.
find that darkness, that shadow in you, and they're gonna be like, hey, like what's this doing, you know? And
Yeah.
that's the person.
No, you're 100%
Absolutely.
correct. That tends to be happening, I think, with a lot of people is just like you said, they may cry and they may not know why, but it could be trauma from years ago that they've never let out. You know,
Yeah.
people who aren't familiar with just say meditation or breath work, and you know, they're just like, I don't know where it came from, but it's like it literally is an aid. It's just like a more dense, I guess, physical aid in the sense that it is a physical thing. And once you kind of intake it, it's just like having that spiritual effect that's less dense. So that is it's pretty incredible. I feel like when people delve into just herbalism in itself, you know, herbalism and plants, because me and LJ are both vegans, so we know
Okay.
what plants can be used for. You can literally mimic anything, you know, food wise with plants.
Yeah.
And that was my point with chocolate, is that chocolate is used in so many different forms, but it realistically it's from the earth. It's not, you know, something that's made in the lab.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people also need to be careful of where their stuff comes from, because not all of it is trustworthy. And as from
Absolutely.
what I've heard and seen now, the government is trying to get their hands on, like you were talking about, Cena, the psilocybin creating their own stuff. And
Right.
we all know it would be tainted and it won't be from nature.
The only other question I have for you is, did you ever take the heroic dose yourself? And if you did, oh, no, no, okay,
Oh,
okay.
No, honestly, I'm a pretty sensitive one, and the teaching that I've been getting over the past few years, no, not few years, like my work is getting very focused on microdosing, and of course I've macrodosed, and of course I've had many psychedelic journeys over my life, but I'm getting very clear. Like a lot of people come to me and they're like, can you lead me in a journey? Can like I want to go deep. And I'm like, I mean, I probably could, but that's not my focus right now. Like I'm kind of this microdosing bridge for people. And I feel like that's like what the fungi, um, that's what they're bringing through from me. So I don't know if I'll ever take a heroic dose. Like I, I don't know. I don't know if I need that. Like, because that's the other thing. I'll just say this, because if people are watching this and they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to start working with plant medicine, it can be easy to like, you don't have to just do as much plant medicine as you possibly can do. Like what I've learned is like how to be in my body. That's what they help me do. They help me like clear out all this gunk and shit and like whatever, and clear out my vessel so that I actually enjoy being in my body, and so I can like create the visions and bring the visions that you get in ceremony into form, into real life. And like you can't really do that if I can't do that. I think a lot of people can't do that if you're like, you can get pretty ungrounded if you're doing a lot of plant medicine and you're not intentionally grounding yourself. And that's something that I've seen in a lot of kind of like the spiritual plant community, plant medicine communities. Like that's not what I feel like they want us to do. Like they're like, hey, like we're trying to be your allies to be humans and like be humans in a good way and show up. Yeah, that I just had to say that little piece.
Okay, no problem, no problem. I respect that. I respect that. Everybody does have, their limits and their comforts with the
Yeah,
mushrooms, and I believe you should stick to that. I
yeah,
am a mushroom enthusiast. I'm an explorer. So
yeah,
I dare to be different. I dare to dive in a little deeper if I can. So,
yeah,
I definitely will say, for people who are interested in a heroic dose, you definitely want to take your time to get there
yeah.
because once you take 5 grams, I'm speaking from experience now, everything's open. There's
Mm,
no blockages.
mm,
Everything's exposed. And if you're not ready for every part of you to be exposed mentally, spiritually,
right.
physically, then you should literally, take your time with this because they call it a heroic dose for a reason. And that's what I learned too. It's
Yeah,
like you have to ride that train. You have to buckle up and enjoy the ride because now you're no longer the driver. Like the mushrooms are taking you where they want you to go.
yep. That sounds like some of my ayahuasca journeys for sure.
I'm
And
glad you brought that
uh,
because I was going to ask you about that because you said
yeah,
you haven't done a heroic dose, but at least you've done an ayahuasca ceremony.
yeah, I've done like a handful of that, probably like 5 or 6.
I was just thinking one, and you're like, yeah, I've done like 18, but
I mean, a lot of people that I know have done like hundreds. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Anyways, that's amazing. I one thing I just want to just to like tie up that last piece though. I think the key to know if you're interested and called, like if you're curious about a heroic dose, that might be a sign that you should explore that or like move towards that. For me, I'm like, like I just there's no like I'm good. Like I really don't right now in my life. I'm not saying I would never, but like yeah. But anyways, did you want to talk a bit about ayahuasca more in depth or?
well, it's
My
up to
girl, the
you if
same
you
way.
want to tell us a little bit about your. Because one of my questions was going to be about any personal psychedelic trips with plant medicine, but while we're
Okay.
on the topic, I'm sure you've had that with ayahuasca.
Yeah. Well, ayahuasca's she's like the plant medicine in a lot of ways. She's like the grandma. Or the the mother, however you want to look at it. How do I even, I gotta pick a story.
The first is always a doozy. You know, you can speak about that as well.
The first was a doozy. Oh my God. Okay. So this is like little Sena. I mean, like if I could put a before picture of me from not even that long ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, but I just looked like I was like a little girl, you know, like really I was not like a woman. I was not, I didn't, anyways, I was working at Google and I was like totally in the matrix. And then I find Cacao, I like start changing my life. I go to Peru, I take this huge leap, and I felt really called to ayahuasca. I didn't really know much about it. I had definitely had some solid mushroom journeys before that. More, it was like a beautiful experience, but it wasn't like a ceremonial experience. It was like going out in nature, that kind of vibe. But I just, you know, I'm honestly not like a psychedelic explorer, really. Like that's not like my partner, like he's like all day, like let's go. But I'm kind of like, you know, I get like
Yeah.
nervous and like I don't want to take too much, and you know, it's a whole thing for me. And so I had no idea what I was in for with ayahuasca. And I was terrified. Like I was so scared. And there are many things I could tell you about that night. It went all night, and I was up. I was the last one in the morning, like 6:30 a.m. The whole shaman team is working on me because like for some reason I didn't have my process until the morning. I was like stuck in the depths of hell for a while. But I like I it really felt like I learned how to fight for my life and like really advocate for myself in that ceremony. Like it was like this choice of like, do you want to live? Because you gotta sit up. Like you gotta like speak up. You gotta do something, you know? And there was also this crazy part, and I've heard a lot of people have this experience with that medicine where I felt like I was giving birth, like literal like contractions happening. And I mean, I don't think they were literal contractions, but that's what it felt like. It was like that.
Like they
That
were big
You were
contractions.
rebirth. You were giving birth to your new self, your new
for
higher self.
real. Yeah, really. Like it was a full process, and I mean, it was a mess. I was an absolute ridiculous mess. Like I didn't know how to navigate that realm, you know? I didn't know anything. I just went in and got my ass handed to me, and it changed my life and like made me who I am today. I mean, 100%. Like wouldn't change it for the world.
Real quick, I just want to say from my small research on some people who have taken or have done the ayahuasca like ritual, it's kind of similar in what you say. But one thing I've noticed, even with that and also with mushrooms and plant medicine of the sort, is it's this type of purging effect. You know, like when we get to people crying and people screaming and doing all this, it's releasing
Yeah.
like the trauma and things that just have not been released before. At least from what I'm seeing is what's happening. And
Did you ever puke as well?
I've been
Oh,
hearing that too.
in ayahuasca?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That I mean, I think like I don't know, like 80 to 90% of people will purge, and like some people just don't, which I think is I don't even understand that. But
Right. Right.
yeah.
It's like
Most
after
people
I've
I know
taken it.
that have taken it, they have always talked about the purging of puke, like and it
Yeah.
hits them out of nowhere. They're like anticipating it, and then they're like walking, and all of a sudden they're just, "Ah," and then it's just like, and then
It's
they
a
say
big
like after that they like feel like amazing,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
and
really
that's
big part of it. Like you're just in a room with a bunch of people throwing up. It's like nothing like I've ever experienced.
Together in unison.
It's the most bonding thing though. Like that is such an intimate thing to like sit next to someone and be like, yeah, we did that, you know?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. that to me is like, I haven't done it, but that to me is probably one of the most spiritual things I think you can do physically is participate in the ayahuasca ritual because what, like I said, once again, what I'm seeing is that purging effect is we don't do that in our daily lives. We don't really
Right.
sit there and cry. We don't really sit there and scream. We don't sit there and throw up. And then if
Yeah.
people are taking things like bad food, bad music, bad
Right.
television, bad programming and the sort, you aren't taking all these things without releasing it. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why people they're always going through that as an effect of things like that because they don't release any other way.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. I mean, I think that's why that first ceremony was so hard was because I was literally like, I feel like the medicine was like getting the matrix out of me. Like I was working in Silicon Valley,
Mm.
I was like so deep in like the internet and I don't even know, like
Yeah.
EMS and all the things. And so I really feel like it was so hard because she was like getting me back to my natural state and there was so much that had to be cleared out.
I believe that working for Google, absolutely. Google gives me a headache. You have one question for you at the bottom right here, though. I want to get this question off that's pinned. What do you recommend for someone in this situation? I began microdosing, but before first protocol was over, I lost my supplier and would love advice for healing during the time away from the medicine.
Mm. Yes, this is the question, the $1 million question, because it's like I it's so not okay that this is not a legal medicine right now. Like it's really fundamentally harming. I think it's harming people because yeah. So I feel you. I feel for you that you like were on this path and then don't have access. That's hard. So I would say right off the bat, like know that you have that connection with the fungi within you. Like you've already opened the energetic connection, you've already opened the relationship, and you can continue talking to them and you can continue asking them for support and healing or whatever you need on your journey. Um, Sometimes I go outside and put my feet on the earth, like my bare feet, and I'll visualize the mycelium web underneath because the mycelium web covers 90% of land on earth. Like they're really everywhere, pretty much. And so they're here, and it's you have everything like you need to access that within you. Um, and I would also hold a really strong prayer, however that looks for you, and call the fungi into your life. Like really let them know, like, hey, I would love for you to like find your way to me. I'm open to receive the right medicine at the right time. And I like that intention and communicating that out will probably work like faster than you'd think.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, if you already have a connection with something, which we all are connected, pretty much all you have to do is ask. That connection never goes away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So thank you for your question, number one. In the meantime, though, Sena, do you have anything that you are working on, putting out, anything of your own work that people can
Yeah,
go and check out?
absolutely. Well, I've got a lot of stuff, a lot of videos on YouTube. So if there's a microdosing 101 video out there, if you want like more specifics, there's a lot of cool conversations that I've had. You can find my YouTube by searching Microglow. And then I'm super excited about this. I'm launching an official brand, an official business.
All
This
right.
is our, yeah, it's really big. I'm actually planning to launch on the equinox, which is March 21st.
Mm.
Um, and so
Aries season.
yeah, yes. Um,
Dude.
my intention is for it to be a community space so people can like people that are microdosing can connect with other microdosers and ask questions and just have a community to learn from and grow with. And then I also have some blends coming. So right now they're without the psilocybin, but they're different blends that you can add to your microdose at home. And then the ideal is that when this becomes a legal medicine, I could share that with people. So yeah, I just tagged the account if y'all want to check it out. I'd love that.
One of the main reasons, we wanted to get you on here too, because you were someone I found and I started listening to, and I started doing some of my own research on it, and it's helped me like tremendously, like where I'm like, wow, I wish I'd known about this sooner, and I could have even helped others, with this information. So, with that being said, though, one more question for you while we wait and see if we have any more requests is, on this journey for you, what has been the toughest thing to overcome while you've been dealing with, I shouldn't say dealing, I would say more so just confronting the whole aspect of plant medicine?
It's a great question. So for me, it's been like some of the biggest medicine that I've gotten from just starting to work with the plants. Some of the biggest medicine has been honing my discernment of when I sit in ceremony, with whom I sit in ceremony with. That's a big one. What my intentions are, like that has been, because, when I dove in, I was in Peru, and I was, my whole world was just turned upside down. I was like exposed to this way of being that was so beautiful. Like people just like hippies just traveling around and like just living such a free life. I had never really seen that. And so, and where I was also like in it's a huge plant medicine, it's a huge ayahuasca community. So like there were people sitting in, it was kind of like the more ceremony you do, the better. That was kind of the vibe that when I first saw it, that was what I was surrounded with. And so I kind of had this belief that like I needed to like keep going and like do more, but my body, like in my second ayahuasca ceremony in the same week as that first one, the medicine told me super clearly to not do any other, like to not sit with any other plant medicine for the next 6 months. And I was like so resistant to that because I had just opened the portals, right? And even though like I got my ass kicked, I was still like, oh my God, like I want to, there's so much to explore. Like this is amazing. And I was in this big program it was like a yoga teacher, an advanced yoga teacher training. And so that's where we had 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, and then we had a San Pedro vision quest. That was our last like ceremony, and I really wanted to do it, like so excited for it. And then ayahuasca told me, don't, like you need to take a break, you need to rest, you need to heal your heart, you need to like come back home to yourself. And I was negotiating with myself. And so by the time it came to the day before that San Pedro's ceremony, I was like, I'm going to have a half a cup. That's fine. I'll just have a little bit. It's okay. I know I'm not supposed to, but like, it's the clothes, I was making all these excuses. That day, I sprained my ankle so bad. I was literally basically bedridden. It was like worse than a break. It was like one of those sprains where you're like, it was as if I broke my ankle. And that was like the lesson I needed. That's like, you do not disobey the plants. You do not like commit to something or you don't go into ceremony to receive the wisdom from these plants and then ignore it. That was kind of a tangent, but it felt like it needed to be shared. And yeah, but like my biggest journey has been discernment, and just like only I know what I need and what's right for me, and only you know what you need and what's right for you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was a good story, because it reminds me of almost like kind of connecting with your higher self, and your
Yeah.
higher self throwing these hints out like, hey, you know, like what do people call it? They say like my second thought, you know what I mean, or whatever. But it's just like, yeah, your second thought is probably your first thought, and your higher self telling you like, hey, look, don't go this way, don't do that,
Right.
don't do this. And it's almost as if like, you know, the plants just enhance it, but it's in a, once again, it's in a physical form. So it seems to me like this is like for people who may be struggling spiritually, who, let's say they have issues with meditation and they don't know how to breathe properly. So, you know, they don't do a good job with breath work or whatever. That, would you say this is a good start for people to get on that path of just kind of enlightenment per se?
What a good path? Like microdosing or ayahuasca?
Microdosing and just kind of being introduced into plant medicine of the sort.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I like microdosing, because it's something that, like, I recommend you, if you're gonna do a deep dive ayahuasca journey or any like larger journey like that, you really want to know who you're working with. Like, you don't want to just sign up for the first thing, and that can take time. And so I like microdosing as kind of this like introduction, because it does help you in your daily life get into that positive task network, that flow. It helps you shift up your habits. It helps you build new neural connections in your brain, which we didn't even talk about. You know, it has all these benefits, like from working with fungi, plant medicine, but you don't need to like fly to Peru or, you know, pay $5,000 or whatever it is to do like some of these deeper things. And so, yes, if someone's like wanting to connect more deeply with themselves or with spirit, or, you know, drop into meditation, I think it can be incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I mean, I've been on like a spiritual journey probably for like 15 years, to be honest. But this was something that was even brand new to me, because I've never been someone who's done drugs, drink alcohol, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
But this is obviously not the same thing as drugs. I know they put that label on there,
Yeah.
but yeah, for me, even I've, you know, partaken, and I've seen the incredible benefits that it's had on me mentally and also physically, because there's times, like I said, where I'm like, I'm out and I'm just like, I don't want to do this. And then next thing you know, I'm on a mission and I'm handling business like I've never done before. So anyone who I would say is having those types of issues, definitely check out Sena and your YouTube. A lot of informative stuff on there. So was super looking forward to this. I was excited to have you on, because this was a
Yeah.
topic that was
Yeah,
really,
me too, man. I appreciate this.
Thank you so much for
yeah.
having me. I love this conversation. You guys are great. Like, thanks for being so
Thank
real, asking such good
Thank you.
Thank
questions,
you. Thank
telling
you.
your stories, and yeah.
It was amazing to have you on. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. LJ, do you have any closing statements?
Just thank you for allowing us to interview you, and your information has been very, very helpful, especially to me, especially with the cacao. Like, I'm really gonna invest in some more cacao now, just from, you know, hearing you talk about it so passionately. I
Mm,
definitely am intrigued, so I will look into that more. So thank you for that.
absolutely. I'm excited for you.
All right, guys. So we're going to close out. And let's see here. I think we're good. Like, perfect on time. Yeah, we are. All right, perfect. So
All
thank you
right.
guys
Thank you.
for the live. And thank you, Sena, once again.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys soon. Be back on Thursday.
All right.
All right.